Hey everybody, it's Mr. Marchetti again. As promised, I wanted to put a quick video together about our journal entries, or one of our homework pieces. Similar to what I did with the close reading activity, I wanted to just sort of put forth sort of a sample journal entry of what one could look like. I know a lot of you have already completed them at this point, but again, this is something that you could look at revising an existing journal entry or going forward, how to sort of perfect your journal entries. And I think hopefully, well, I hope it'll be helpful for you. So yeah, we're on our Blackboard page right here. Obviously, just as a recap, under course content, if I click on it, and computers take as long as they need, we are looking at On Writing Well by William Zinsser. And if you just as a refresher, when you click on it here, it will open it up within Blackboard, which can be a little, it works, but it's a little cumbersome. I find that if you just kind of download it or open it here, it's way easier. It will then open it in a PDF on Reader, Adobe Reader, right on your desktop or right on your Chrome. So that I think makes it a lot cleaner to use. And then, I mean, yeah, you're tasked with reading, I think, about 40 or 30, 35, 38 pages, something like that. A decent amount of work, but really all I was asking for was you to find two examples of something that Zinsser points out in his work that you could use yourself as a writer. So there's a lot of material to look at, but I'm only really asking you to locate a few small pieces. And I think there's value in reading Zinsser, but we are busy people with busy lives and a lot of stuff going on, particularly now. And this book works really well for sort of jumping around and finding sections that interest you, rather than reading it cover to cover. I think if you're going to be a writer, it's definitely worth reading cover to cover. But for now, for our purposes, I think jumping around is a fair way to sort of look at sections and see what piques your interest, and then sort of going from there at that point. So I kind of started just real simple, and I'll try to move this over here. It's tough with my floating head here. So I found in the opening sections, the transaction, really just the first couple pages, a couple quotes that always stand out to me. So I always use them as examples. And then I tried to give you over on the right here sort of a sample journal entry, at least in a Word doc, and what that would sort of look like. Actually, what I'll do afterwards is I will post this in the discussion board as my response, and then you can see it there in the future, and you can see how it's posting in case anyone's having difficulties with that. So yeah, towards the end here, I had this from this paragraph, this final paragraph, where Zinsser's talking about the transaction, the title of the chapter, and he says, this is the personal transaction that's at the heart of good nonfiction writing. He's been talking about this up to this point. Out of it comes two of the most important qualities that this book will go in search of: humanity and warmth, which we'll talk about in a sec. He goes on to say good writing has a aliveness that keeps the reader reading from one paragraph to the next, and it's not a question of gimmicks to personalize the author. It's a question of using the English language in a way that will achieve the greatest clarity and strength. He finishes, can such principles be taught? Maybe not, but most of them can be learned, which is a pretty cheeky way to say that he's going to try to teach you, even though he says it can be difficult. So over on the right here in my Word doc, I focused on this particular quote from that paragraph. Just the section it's not a question of gimmicks to personalize the author. It's a question of using the English language in a way that will achieve the greatest clarity and strength. That's my quote. You'll notice here that I have highlighted the author and the page number. That is called citation, if you don't know, and that is something that we'll definitely be using in our future essays. Not in essay 1, not in the personal essay, but in essay 2, 3, and 4 for sure. So it's good to get in the habit of doing that, citing the author and the page number that you found it on. And so this is my quote, and this is what you would write down if this was your sample quote. And then you would then sort of analyze the quote briefly. Probably doesn't even need to be as long as this. But I wrote, and this is how I always feel about this moment, right? I love that Zinsser is so insistent on making sure clarity and strength are showcased in an author's work. An author of fiction can use all the $20 words in their arsenal, but if it isn't clear and direct when it needs to be, their prose will be muddy. This is something I take with me as a writer always. We cannot write like we speak. An email cannot sound like an in-person conversation. It needs to be direct and to the point. Fiction can lose a reader quickly if it meanders for too long and gets lost in the fancy words and poetic voice of the author. This is a statement like many of Zinsser's, that grounds me. It grounds me when I am writing. So I always come back to this one because I think it's something good to think about as a writer as we are writing. As sort of a bonus, I also highlighted his terms, humanity and warmth, which come before this quote. And I just put a little added piece that, while the first quote, the above one we just looked at, from Zinsser feels pretty stern, he reminds us right before that first quote that humanity and warmth are also important in an author's work. This is especially important in our work in Essay 1, when we are attempting to create a personal connection of some kind with our own stories, and basically to me. So you're telling me about yourself, and you have to create a connection through your writing, which is particularly hard for an online class. Typically, an in-person class, I'd be talking with you and getting to know you personally, how most of us get to know people well. We're not doing that in this class. So your writing, hopefully, will reflect a personal connection or an attempt to create a personal reflection or connection through the reflection of those memories. So I pulled this one out because I just thought it worked really well with Essay 1, as our first one does. And this is a nice contrast to the writing that you're going to be trying to do, right? Trying to keep things clear and strong and to the point, but also having this kind of warmth and personal, emotional connection to them as well. That's a balance you're trying to strike, which is admittedly a difficult one to do. And I understand that as you're writing this. I just want you to do your best. And then my third one, which is just one of my favorite quotes about writing, is this on page 12, clutter is the disease of American writing. Something I always think about. It always sticks with me. It's in my classroom on the wall, always. And again, I just wrote in my analysis section, these italicized sections here, this is just one of my favorite quotes about writing. Again, it's about simplifying what we are saying to make it clear and strong. Too often we are drowning in needless words, much like conversations with people that seem to go on and on and on and on. And this statement is something I carry with me always when I'm writing. And it has become something I think about when I'm speaking as well, because I like to tell stories, and it's easy to get lost in your stories and sort of go on and on and on and not really understand that the people don't want to hear them anymore. So yeah, that's just a sample of what a journal entry could look like. And the reason I wrote it in a Word doc is because I wanted you to be able to see it in a way that made sense for this video, but it's also because Blackboard posting on discussion boards particularly can be a little finicky. So I always recommend people to put their work on a Word doc first and then copy and paste it in, which is what I'm going to do right now. So if I had my work right here, I could very quickly highlight it all. I'm just going to change the font in case it gets in there massively. So I have my whole post highlighted. I would then go back to my discussion board. And I would scroll down to journal entry 1, which looks like a lot of you have successfully completed, which is great. Trying to pay attention to the names I see. And I'm going to create a thread, which will just be for me. And I will just put my name, okay. And then we have the body right here. You can't right-click and paste. It won't let you. So you have to do Control-V to paste it. And it didn't work. How embarrassing for the teacher. I don't think I ever hit copy. Okay. If you try to copy and paste it with right-clicks like now, it should give you an error message, which is basically a long way of saying you need to do Control-V. And hopefully this will work this time. And there it is. So now my post is in there. Everything, it seems pretty clear, right? You've got my quotes. I did 3, but you only needed 2. I've got my quote highlighted, the page number, and the author. Obviously, we know the author. And then in italics, I have my own analysis. You don't need to do it in italics. I think it makes it clear to know who's speaking in those moments. And then when I'm done, I would just click Submit. And now it will be at the top for everyone to see. And you can refer to it there if you need to look at it again at all. So I hope this has been helpful. If need be, I can always create more video content about the journal entries if there's one in particular that's difficult. We could definitely do like a Zoom meet if people need to get together to talk about some of this stuff. It seems like people are getting it, but I just want to make sure that I give you as much video content as possible since we're not meeting in person. So yeah, I hope that this all finds you well. I hope you're staying safe, and healthy, and you'll be seeing more from me in the near future. Thanks, guys.